Hello, welcome to another episode of Flood City 2. Cue classical music and establishing shots. And we're back to the glorious city of Flood City 2, still in the process of being rebuilt after the 1 in 500 year flood. Much of the city still lies barren and undeveloped, while the population is still 30,000 lower than it was before the Great Flood. But today they're going to have to deal with yet another flood, and today we have a 1.00 flood that will be hitting the city. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to work. The flooding mechanics seem to be a bit weird. I remember the last flood was a pretty moderate flood, but it didn't do a whole lot. So we're going to have to see what this 1.00 flood does. This is a severe flood. Not like a absolutely insanely severe, but it's severe enough. And as we see here, we have our standardized tree measuring system, the the TMSF system, as pointed out by a viewer commentator in a comment that made me lol rather heartily. So yes, we have the newest flood and it has started. So let's see what things are like. Still have a lot. I mean, this area I don't think is going to get rebuilt up pretty anytime soon, but it was before, if you haven't seen previous episode, it was pretty much built up to the river, but this whole area got wiped out. And it looks like we may need a police station around here, so we'll put a smaller one over in this area just for good measure, because it seems like we have criminal activity at the... Actually, we probably have that there because there are no roads going to it. So let's just quickly plop down a road going to the cemetery so people can visit their loved ones that passed away in the previous flood, most likely. Actually, that cemetery is probably underwater in the last flood, so that's not a very good combination. Water levels are still kind of high. I guess this is the tail end of the last flood. We have a little bit of flooding in the park over here, a little bit of flooding in the old Wilson district, which is now completely demolished, but might be rebuilt someday. But that's about it. What about... this highway is still... I could just raise this bridge, but... who needs a bridge? They can always take this one. Actually, you know what? Let's make a road that goes between these two highways. That way, if this bridge is underwater, this is way more complicated than just fixing that bridge, but I don't care. I really like this system I created. It's one of my proudest creations. Pretty cool. I still plan on doing that traffic video where I teach managing traffic and that kind of thing. I haven't forgotten about it, but I'll do it soon enough. Don't worry. Whenever, like maybe in 2022 when Star Citizen comes out. So let us create this highway that can sort of go between these two. Just going to do a double lane highway. It doesn't need to be anything. I don't think it needs to be anything that can support too high a volume. I don't think it's going to be a ton of traffic using this. 2 lanes should be more than enough. But we can always expand if we find that isn't the case. Now here we have the southbound traffic. So then we need to get this lane up here. I'm going to pause this because places are going to be without electricity momentarily. We will do a bridge kind of thing. Let's see if this... Okay, there we go. And want to plot that as close to possible. Oh, right. We need to go that way. Okay, that was a bit of a mistake. Okay, so now we got in going the right way. So we can then... Oh, rats. We can do that. Not quite as pretty, but I suppose if we do that, I should just turn that into the one way. Otherwise, it's just kind of weird. And then we have the exit side. I'm not going to have room to make it go this way if I leave it that close. So what I'm going to do is demolish it a bit further back, and then we could separate them a little bit more so I got more room to work with. Then we have one going that way and one which will have to go to the westbound traffic. It's pretty crowded in here. I think what I'm going to have to do is go under the ground. And then, we have... Yeah, that subway is a bit of a problem. So what we're going to have to do is, let's see if we can just go a bit further out. Can we then get underground there? Yeah, I can. Okay. So we go there, and we raise it back up, and into there. Perfect. Now we have that. All right, I still have the other side to do, but first I have to reconnect that power line. I realize I don't make the prettiest cities in the world, but I mean, that's pretty much what actual cities look like. It's not like people think that plan cities as well as some people do in this game. Real cities are just a big mess of random roads and stuff. It's realistic. I like my realism. Now we just need to attach this side, which won't be particularly complicated. And this side we can go underneath. Or can we? Yes, we can. I'll do something about that road afterwards. You know what we're going to do? We're going to demolish this a little bit. We can always make a tunnel for it. And that's not the right one. Alrighty, so we got that all set up where we put this road in the tunnel that goes under here, and now traffic can go between these two highways without having to go all the way around. All because I didn't feel like taking 3 seconds to demolish this bridge and make it higher. Alright, so it looks like we have some residential and commercial demand, so I think I want to build up this area again. Now, since we're between two major roads, I think I'm going to do high-density residential in this area. And maybe we'll add a nice little park for people to go do park things at, which will be very parky or something. I'll leave it like that for now. Now we need to add some commercial. Where should I do some commercial? Maybe I should add a bit more commercial in this area since there is I think this was commercial before, or a combination of commercial and residential. I'll do that for now. Now we need to add our new citizens of the day. Okay, so let's take a look at our new citizens of Flood City. First, we have Lucy Travick, who currently lives at the Sunset Residence over here in whatever neighborhood that is, Summers Park. Pretty decent area, relatively safe there. We've got Dimitri, who lives in the Garnet Residence. By the way, Lucy and Dimitri are both high school students in their early teens, around 12 years old, a very interesting time of your life. If you're coming into, if you're about to turn 12 or whatever, you're in for a wild ride. Let me guarantee you that. Anyways, you live there, pretty close to Lucy. So, being your age, there might be some romantic entanglement between you two with all those hormones rushing. And, this is getting a bit awkward. Anyways, moving on to Robert Lee, who's 22 and doesn't have to worry about all that weird stuff, who lives in the Garnet Residence. Another Garnet Residence, I guess. There's 2 Garnets in this town, which is a nice big apartment building nearby. So all you new people are residents of Summers Park. And Oh no, the other two are in Saint Somers Park, who has now been sainted. You have now entered sainthood. And it's raining. Whoopee. Checking up on our older residents. We got Mushroom, who's currently at home at the Hamilton residence. We got Callium Hindley, who's also at home. Rick Bradama is currently going to school, waiting for the subway down there. Thunder. And Frosty Creeper is working at the fashionable fashion shop. Nothing like redundance. Now, I did a little bit of terraform, getting rid of the various barricades that were in the river, which has created quite a stir of water being sloshed around, which might make for some interesting things happening. Or not, maybe not. It's not like I was raising levels. I remember when I did that, I tried raising the seafloor around here, and it just ended up creating a giant wave that sloshed through everything, which was a rather predictable outcome that I wasn't thinking about at the time. But hopefully this will allow the water to flow a bit more smoothly through the city. While waiting for the flood to come in, we do have some more commercial demands, so I think I'm going to grant them their wish and give them some more commercial area to spread out in. So we'll start rebuilding this area. I don't want to go overboard, but that should do for now. Already buildings popping up there. Now I also need to sort of reconstruct this little area. Let's do some nice tree streets that can go right across here and right across here like so. Be connected like that. Let's do some... Are these one-ways? I seem to recall there being one-ways around here. Well, we'll make these ones one-ways. First of all, we'll click, chop that off, and then do one way going that way and one going down that way. And that should create... I think I'll do a small one-way going down here just because actually doing stuff that close is a bit bad for traffic. One little traffic tip that I use, although you can't actually do this unless you have this mod, the traffic precedent mod, is taking off traffic lights that you don't need. Like, I'm going to take traffic lights off of these streets. And what I like to do on main streets is take off the traffic lights for every other road. So every second road has a set of lights. That way you don't have cars always stopping at every single block. And that's sort of how it is in real life too, and I find it helps quite a bit. Another traffic thing that I like to use a lot, although it doesn't really work as well when you don't have this mod, is making these right turn exits. So rather than cars turning right having to stop at these lights and then wait, they can just go down here and then merge onto this street without having to be encumbered by any lights. So when this light turns green, the cars going straight through and turning left can have priority. In fact, I should change the lane arrows on this street so these are only straight through rather than right-hand turns. That way cars will have to take the right turn exit. Looks like we do have the park that always gets flooding, this looks like it's going to be a moderate flood, as you can hear scary things growling in the background. Let's take a look at I can't even remember the acronym. The acronym flood measurement system. It's currently at this tree, which means something. So the old flooded out areas do seem to be building back up quite nicely. I mean, this whole area on screen right now is wiped out in the 1 in 500 year flood, as well as everything on the screen right now is wiped out. So this is all brand new areas, which are rebuilding up quite nicely. And I did add a bit more of the high density residential here just now. I don't care that it's burned down. Now in here we have this area. Oh yeah, it's pretty much built up completely. Maybe I'll add it. I don't want to do high density over here because it's not. This area isn't. The infrastructure isn't really set up to support high density anything at the moment. So I'll just keep low density down here. This area is pretty much all built back up as well as here, except we have this little thing right here. In fact, maybe I'll add in a road. I don't think I'll go all the way to the main road street. Actually, I think what we'll do is I'm just going to do the tree, and we'll go do something like that, just to create a bit more usable area like that. A little commercial to fill in that area. Let's see how our soccer team's doing, or our football team. I was originally supposed to be a British accent, but it just turned out sounding kind of weird. We've had one win so far, so I guess that match we saw last time was the only match we've had so far. Ticket prices are $30, and I really don't care about sports that much. So waters have risen quite substantially over the past few minutes. I believe when I looked at it a few minutes ago, it was at the third tree. Now it's almost at the fifth tree, halfway between the fourth and the fifth. So water is going up. Let's see how it is on the dike. Not really threatening anything here yet. A lot of it seems like it's diverting down the spillway. Water does seem to be rising along the graveyard of the Wilson district. But now the Somers bypass is working a lot better than it was before, now that I actually leveled it out. So, interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens. It's not too high here, but... So I suppose I'll talk a little bit about the Disasters DLC. Now, I haven't really looked into it too much. I watched this short video, and it does sort of worry me that, if I recall correctly, it doesn't seem like there is really going to be any flooding mechanic. I mean, it seems kind of silly with the water system they've created. It creates a perfect opportunity to have floods, but it sounds like there's going to be tsunamis, which honestly don't really interest me very much, because it's just a wave that flows to the city, and you can't really do anything. There's no dynamic gameplay to actually defend about it, so I have absolutely zero interest in tsunamis. Asteroid impacts, yeah, those are kind of interesting and fun, but what I really want is a good flooding mechanic, something that may, if you have seasons, and in the spring you'll get higher water levels because of snow melt and that kind of thing. That's the kind of disaster stuff I would love to see, rather than just SimCity style ridiculous disasters that you just do for shits and giggles. So I'm hoping that there is something like that in the DLC, but I'm not holding my breath. Regardless, my system that I've created seems to work pretty well, so it's not the end of the world if there isn't, but I'm just hoping that the evacuation mechanism is going to be something that I can use with my floods and that kind of thing, because that's what I've wanted from day one, is some kind of method to evacuate citizens from certain areas that are getting flooded. I think that would be really cool. So I guess only time will tell. And somebody out there, please just make a flood mod. Make a mod that allows you to flood the city. I know there is one mod by someone who messaged me on Steam with a mod that he wanted me to try, which basically, when you have rainfall and that kind of thing, there's floodwaters that rise, and there's sewage systems, and it sounds like a really interesting mod, and I want to give it a shot one day, but the only problem is it's You sort of have to, when you use that mod with a city from scratch, because you have to design your city with roads that are sort of indented so water, sort of falls down to the lower points, the roadways, and then goes into the sewers. So when you apply that mod to a city that's already established, it's just going to be a big mess because none of the infrastructure is set up to deal with that kind of thing. So I do plan to use your mod one day, so don't worry, but maybe in the next one, possibly. We'll see. So yeah, that's sort of my state of thoughts on the upcoming Disasters DLC. I only like read a little bit of information on the Steam page and watched a brief video from the devs that I watched, sort of skipping through different parts. So I'm not exactly hugely educated on it, but those are just my thoughts on what I know so far on the upcoming Disasters DLC for City Skylines. So again, we've got some more residential demand. I think I'll do some low density residential up here to start filling in these areas once again. You have to take a look at schools, and I think infrastructure, schools, parks, fires, that kind of thing should be all right, but I'll have to double check it in a minute because I didn't really demolish any of that from the gigantic flood. It all should be in there. And of course, we got to put those houses that are right on the water for fun. But yeah, let's take a quick look at the infrastructure. Health all looks good. School is pretty good. Garbage good. Fire looks good. Police. Where's police? Crime. I guess we could use a police station up here, just a small one. And otherwise, I think we're okay. Okay, so it seems like we've got some issues beginning. The Operation Lancer Memorial has been completely flooded out at this point, and we have significant rises in water levels on the lowland areas leading up to the city, including a little bit on the western side of the river, taking out these power generation. Now let's see what our power is like. We've still got plenty of power, so the loss of those turbines isn't going to cause too much problems. So I guess we'll see how this develops. Now this small rebuilt area, semi-rebuilt area, is a threat because the dike protecting it isn't a very big one. It's just to defend against relatively minor floods. And we can see it's already within a few feet of overflowing it. Now, this seems like the beginning of this surge, so yeah, you can see it's already making its way over the roadway, and it's widened the river quite significantly, so we'll see what happens when it starts making its way more downstream. Not sure if it'll be enough to overflow this flood wall, but could come close. Alright, it's now significantly overflowing this dike and moving into the area. This could happen quite quickly. I'm at fast speed right now. Now we're back at the normal speed. And even there, it's moving through this area quite readily. So this area, which has just been rebuilt after the previous flood, is once again going to be consumed by the waters of the rising Rouge. Starting to overflow this, which allows it to begin going into the spillway from this direction. Here, it hasn't really risen that much. It's just making its way up to the fifth tree from where it was before, which was sort of in between the fourth and fifth tree. But it is starting to make its way over the bend here, trying to take the path of least resistance, which will be going through the Wilson district, which isn't really a district anymore, if I'm honest. But it's moving in here quite severely. All right, so at the tree measurement system, it's pretty much up to the last tree, although it is also coming up from behind the tree because this tree is sort of on a raised area, so it's going around the tree. So technically it's far surpassed the fifth tree, I suppose. And moving into the what little remains of the Wilson district, which is pretty much just services and schools and a parking lot and a park. The Murphy Park district area seems like it's pretty much holding at that level, so most of the area might not see the worst of this. It's flooding the parkways, it's flooded the seawall here going above, completely flooded out the green areas, and it's quite high, about halfway up this flood wall on the Teague Park, the Teague Memorial Park, as it now is, which used to be a neighborhood that always got flooded out. So I suppose it's time we should take a quick look at our citizens. Callie and Hindley, currently waiting for the bus, going home. Lucy at high school studying. Which high school are you at? Pretty safe there. Robert Lee, currently at home. No one seems to be in particularly high danger at the moment, considering where they live. Alright, we have some very severe flooding in Orchard Square. Thankfully, there isn't really anything there at the moment. This park area is completely flooded out, and the newer commercial districts are being pretty threatened by this. Most of the water is in the undeveloped areas, but there is a little bit in our sort of tourist area. Moving to the main flood wall for the most populated areas. It's getting close to overflowing, but it's still under control. Moving down, the floodwaters haven't quite reached this far yet. They have flooded out the dock area, but that's a given. They always get flooded out because it's quite low. Water hasn't gone any further in Murphy Park. It's relatively stable at that level, but Wilson District's quite severely hit. So the river has widened by quite a substantial amount in the north end as the surge moves its way south. Here we have the most vulnerable part of the flood wall, where it kind of dips right here. It was unlevel terrain. So if it's going to overflow anywhere first, it's probably going to be right here. It is pretty high, maybe 5 or 6 feet from overflowing this flood wall. And it is making its way quite far down now. I think the surge has made its way pretty much down to here at the moment. So we'll see how the defenses for the south will fare. I think they'll be all right, but we'll see. Okay, it looks like we have something a bit unexpected. The water is starting to overflow the south flood wall coming into this area. This could just be the head of the surge that will overflow some water a little bit over that wall, and it could die down pretty quickly, but we'll just have to see. Does seem to be pretty severe right now, though. There's not too much down there at the moment. It has to go pretty far to hit any buildings, but who knows? As you can see, waters have come quite far into the south area. What's this district called again? The Lyndale district. However, waters do seem to have crested. They're not going up anymore, and water levels are decreasing in the north. So this flood wall was not compromised, saving this whole area for once. The Murphy Park district received a little bit of damage along the edge, but those buildings will rebuild pretty quickly. The only thing that's unsure is how much further this area is going to flood. I don't think it's going to flood much more. Water levels don't seem to be going up anymore, and they do seem to be coming down here, stopping this overflow. Alright, so water levels here have stabilized and have crested and are starting to go down all over the city. So I suppose this is the end of this particular flood in Flood City 2. This one wasn't a major flood. It was sort of a severe regular flood, so nothing too crazy. I think I might do one or two more on Flood City 2, and they are going to be much bigger floods. And then I'm likely going to go over to the Flood City 3 map that I've been working on, which is a lot more challenging. I'm finding on this one things just aren't really that interesting anymore, and they aren't quite working, whereas the new map I'm creating, I've created it to be far more difficult with land levels that are really quite close to the level of the river, so even small floods will cause quite a lot of problems, and the big ones will be pretty catastrophic. So that should be a lot more interesting, and I've learned a lot from making this map and doing this one, so hopefully that should be a lot more interesting. So until next time, again, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for 2,000 subscribers again. I will be doing a 2,000 subscriber special pretty soon, so until then, see you all, you beautiful people.